So grab a cozy, warm drink, maybe some tea, and join me for this little chat about my plans for my garden for 2025. Hello friends, welcome back. I'm Christina Amanita, and today we are talking about garden plans. It is about 12 degrees and snowing outside in the garden. So today is the perfect day to talk about what went well last year, what sucked last year, and what we're planning to do this year as informed by last year. So if that sounds fun to you, if you're thinking about your garden for the year, whether it's a new garden or an old garden, if you're starting to think about it, come along with me and see if there's anything new that maybe you could try or something old that you should try again. So let's get into it and talk about my 2025 garden plans. Okay, so before we get into my dreams for 2025, we have to kind of back up a little bit and talk about 2024 and what worked well and what we failed at. So some of the things that went really well that we will definitely be growing this year are squash. All of our different types of squash did so well. We did yellow squash, zucchini, butternut squash. I think that's it. So those were our 3 squashes, and they all were prolific. Maybe a little bit too prolific on the yellow squash. So that we will definitely be doing it again this year. They went so well and they were so prolific, and we learned a lot about how to cook and eat so many of them. So that was one thing. Another thing that did really well this year was pretty much all of our herbs. They were all pretty prolific and good, especially the parsley. The parsley grew out of control and is still alive out there in the garden, I do believe. Some other herbs that were really successful this year, we had some sage. The lemon balm really was like super bushy. We have rosemary and lavender, some different types of oregano and mint, and some green onions. So all of those things did really well in our garden, and I think that they did help with what we planted them for, which was pest control or deterrent of certain unwanted guests. And they weren't perfect, but I think that starting with those herbs and planting them strategically throughout the garden really helped with that. And then also it was so fun to dry herbs this year. That was my first time, and we actually still have some that we're using. So herbs were a big yes this year. 2 more things that did super well in our garden this year. One was turnips. And this wasn't really even on purpose. When we first planted the herbs, before we planted anything else, I threw some turnip seeds in the ground just to see what would happen. And they were really old seeds, and I never thought they came up. I never saw them come up. And at the end of the season in September, when our squash were kind of dying down, I realized that underneath the squash, there were these giant turnips. No. So they did so well this year without us even doing anything or paying attention to them. So I think next year we can grow a lot more and be a little more intentional about it. And then the last thing that went really well this year that we grew was radishes, which always do really well. They grow so fast, especially here where we have all of the seasons. It's nice to have some stuff in the spring that will come up really quickly and be ready to eat quickly, and can also be planted again in the fall. So those were kind of our biggest successes this year, things that will definitely be growing again next year.
Editing Christina here to say I cannot believe that I forgot mushrooms. I was thinking all vegetables and herbs, but mushrooms. This year was our first year growing them. We grew wine caps, and I highly recommend. Stay tuned for a video soon about mushrooms in general, and maybe some about mushrooms in the garden. If you're interested, let me know down below.
So then there were like a lot of mid-tier things that did just fine. They did just as well as past years and just as well as we needed them to do, like the tomatoes, the peppers. They did well. They always do well. So no complaints there. We'll be doing those again. And I have a feeling we're going to have a lot of volunteer tomatoes. I know that technically you're not supposed to grow tomatoes in the same place the following year, but I'm sure that they're going to reseed themselves. Maybe we'll shift them around, but it might be better just to leave them in the ground. And the thing with that, the suggestion of not doing them in the same spot every year is about blight and other contagions that they can carry through the years. And a lot of that has to do with your soil health. So in theory, if our soil is healthy enough, it won't be as much of a problem. And also, at the end of the season, it's fine if they get blight. I'm kind of okay with it at this point. So anyway, that was a little bit about our volunteer. Hopefully some volunteer tomatoes in the spring will come up because we have not had success with starting them and planting them out ourselves so far. Okay, so then some things that did not do well last year that we have to try again. The first one is corn. This did well and didn't do well. So the corn actually, surprisingly, we didn't plant 100 plants like you're supposed to, and we didn't, do it exactly the way you're supposed to, but we did hand pollinate them all. We had 3 different varieties, and we had maybe 10 plants of each variety, and I self-pollinated, I hand-pollinated all of them, and they actually were fully pollinated, and they did grow. The popcorn grew all the way to full size, but we were leaving it because it wasn't ready to harvest yet, and a big storm came through, knocked over all of the corn, all of it, and somebody ate it, probably the groundhogs. We have a couple families of groundhogs, so I have a feeling it was them that ate it, which is fine because we weren't going to eat it once it was knocked over, and a lot of it wasn't quite done growing yet anyway. But anyway, so now we know the wind that comes across the field is pretty hefty sometimes, and if there's a big storm and the ears are pretty full, they might topple. So now we know, we can prepare a little better, and now we know why people plant so much corn. So we'll try that again next year for sure. Another thing that, along with the corn, we tried some Three Sisters planting this year. We tried doing like a mound, and then we tried doing the Three Sisters in rows. And it just the timing didn't add up for, you're supposed to plant the corn and then the beans and then the squash, I believe. And so the timing just didn't work out the best. The beans that did grow, they ended up pulling down a couple of the corn stalks. So I think, again, it was a timing issue. But hopefully we'll try that again next year, because I do think it's the principles make a whole lot of sense, especially for regenerative agriculture. The rest of the things that didn't do well this year were all the crunchy, green, delicious things that rabbits and groundhogs and birds probably love to eat. So broccoli did not do well. It kept getting eaten. We had one stalk that actually went to seed at the end. It had like a tiny little head, and I was like, whatever, we'll leave it to seed. So maybe it'll replant itself. Probably not. Let's see, the other greens. So we had like spinach and kale and lettuce, and none of that really made it past the stage of trying to push through our wildlife that was just, hungry, and that's totally fine. We're working with it. We're okay with sharing. And the last thing was peas, which we had so much success with the previous year. In 2023, they were delicious and amazing, but we just could not get them to grow big enough before getting eaten. So this year we're going to try some different strategies for doing all of these different green things. I hope to set up an area where we can throw over a net at the very least. I don't think it'll keep everybody out, but just like baby steps, because again, we're okay with sharing. We just, want to also have some ourselves. So if it never grows to the point of being able to put out fruit, then nobody benefits. So we're going to try some different strategies this year without, being too extra and without spending a bunch of money, so that we can grow some of those yummy green things. And then the last thing on my list to try again next year is cucumbers. We've done these 2 years now, I believe, and they just have not, maybe 3, and they just have not produced the way that I would like. I've gotten like 2 cucumbers every year. So trying again this year. Part of it is like trellising better, and I think part of it is probably the soil health. Also, our cucumbers this year were in a fabric planter pot on the side of our garden, and we didn't water it enough because the garden itself didn't need watering because of the soil health and the way that we built up the mulch and everything. So we just kind of ignored the cucumbers and only watered them when we needed to water the rest of the garden, which was obviously a mistake. So those were some of our things that we're trying again in 2025. The beauty of gardening, the beauty of the earth, the beauty of this life is that every year, every day, every month, every moon, there is a new cycle. The cycles come back around and we get another chance. So we will continue to get more chances to do these things. And if they don't work this year, either, we'll say we're going to find a friend or a community member who does really well at that and find a way to trade with them with something that we do really well at, like squash. Or we just, we'll keep plugging along. Because we want to grow as many of the things that we truly eat as possible. And it also, to come back to that point, is important to have a community that you can share items with and kind of rely on each other. So if I grow squash really well and my neighbor grows cucumbers really well and we, have issues, she has issues with squash and I have issues with cucumbers, why wouldn't we share and barter instead of torturing ourselves and watching our plants die in front of us every year, like sometimes happens. So anyway, those are the things we're trying again in 2025. And last, we have our brand new things that we have never grown before. Yay! All right, this is where the fun comes in. The possibilities are endless and there's so much excitement. We're going to try not to buy seeds this year. We do plan to go to some seed swaps. We already have plenty of seeds. We have friends who we can swap seeds with. So I'm going to try not to buy any this year. Every spring I end up buying, I impulse buy way too much. Last year we did a bunch of wildflowers in the garden and those are all pretty much all perennial. So like we don't need any new flowers. Hopefully the sunflowers from last year will reseed themselves. There's just a few things that I think we ran out of, like radishes and turnips. So hopefully we can get those at some seed swaps. Wherever you are, check out if there are sweet seed swaps near you. Check out your local seed library. There's so many ways to get seeds for free. And also not thinking of it as free, but more as a gift and as like a promise of reciprocity that you're given these seeds so that you can grow them, and then hopefully, in theory, you will save your seeds after the season and bring them back to the seed library to keep that going, right? Okay, so let's get into it. So new things, and I've got my little list here so I don't forget anything. My partner really wants to grow sweet potatoes this year. I do understand because sweet potatoes are very nutritious and I do like them. We use them a lot. It's just a long con. We haven't done any of these kind of longer cons yet. So sweet potatoes, garlic, and onions. And so those are all on my list for this year. I don't think we'll get to every single one of them. But sweet potatoes is at the top of the list. We're going to give it a try. And then garlic, which I planted some cloves in the fall. I don't actually think they'll come up, but we'll see. And if not, maybe I can try like a very early spring planting of some garlic cloves. We'll see. I would really love to grow some garlic this year. We use garlic in everything, and it's delicious, and it often has like a lot of stuff in it if you buy it from the store. So garlic, and then onions, which again, we haven't really tried onions. We've done chives, green onions before, but we haven't done actual onions. So all those are kind of long planning things, and they will make it, they will require us to be planned and ready in the spring. So fingers crossed that we will be able to do that. So then some non-long con things. Let's see. So last year we saved some seeds in the fall from pumpkins that we carved for Halloween, and also from the mashed potato squash that we got at our local market. Mashed potato squash, man, it was so good. So I saved all the seeds, and hopefully we'll get to grow some this year on top of all of our other squashes. So pumpkins and mashed potato squash, maybe we'll find a good way to trellis those without buying a trellis. Stay tuned for that. One new one that I put on there that I don't know that we'll actually get to do is cauliflower. We love cauliflower. We can eat a whole head if we put enough hot sauce on it. So I would love to grow some cauliflower. I have never attempted it before. I hope that it's kind of similar to broccoli, and in that case, it's probably going to get eaten. But it's a good try. So cauliflower for the win. And then the last thing is loofah. So I actually got the loofah seeds last spring and just didn't plant them in time because they need a pretty long season. And where I live in zone 6, it's hard to ensure that long season. So I instead of like planting them late and being disappointed, I just decided to wait. And this year we are definitely going to grow some loofah. So hopefully in the fall we will have all the sponges we need for the year and enough to share with our friends and family. So fingers crossed on the loofahs. And then the last thing is a bonus thing that we never got around to last year, but I know would be so beneficial for our soil health, and that is comfrey. So I would love to grow some comfrey. Comfrey, if you don't know, has a really deep taproot and is able to pull up so much nutrients from deep down in the soil where a lot of our vegetables don't go. And so it's really helpful in pulling those things up, and also is a really great chop and drop. And could also, I think, be used as like a fertilizer tea. So you could soak it and make it into a tea, I believe, just like mullein or banana peels. So those are some fun things we're trying this year. Those are our new things. Let me see, did I forget anything? All right, I think that's it. So for the rest of the month, we only have like a week left. The plan is to continue making our spring plans and also buy some plastic to finish up our greenhouse. Right now, it is like the walls are open. There's windows, but then between the windows is just open, which is not good if we're gonna try to start some seeds without them getting eaten by the red squirrels. So hopefully by the end of the month we can at least buy that plastic, and then once the snow melts a little bit we can get it up and start some seeds right away. So our theme for the garden this year is borrow and swap. So not buying new things, not falling into traps, but rather asking the community, asking friends and family if we can borrow or swap. And I think that's gonna help us save a lot of money, make a lot of new connections, and also just practice good regenerative practices where we are not creating waste, but we are creating food, and that is key. Whew, okay, I literally didn't even take a sip of my tea this whole time. Oh yeah. All right, I think that is all the things that I have in my head right now for our garden for 2025. Let me know down below what you are excited to grow this year, and if there were any things on my list that you have never heard of or you are curious about learning more about. I hope to put out some more gardening videos this winter as we get ready for spring. So let me know what kind of garden videos you're interested in seeing from me. Thank you so much for being here, for hanging out with me. I hope you had a nice cozy little chat. And I'll see you in the next one. Have a great day. Bye.